SheerLee here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Mars Hour, Moon Day, and Mars has ingressed to its sign of exaltation, Capricorn. Let's bless us all with benefic actions that stand the test of time. And I know um, the moon is in Scorpio sign, the moon is in Mars sign, and this is a part two to my previous episode. So I have been watching this video by Chen City Rao. I hope I was pronouncing this correctly. And it showed up in my feed. And he talks about basically, he doesn't name it, but he basically talks about the MK Ultra and MK Often and the design of the environment. And it's not just a US issue, but he was spending time in US, and this is always a contrast where we pay attention as tourists to things that we wouldn't as residents. And this is where he mentions how everything by design is taking energy rather than providing energy. And I remember the big booming of making money from good habits. So when Uranus was in Aries and then in Taurus, in Mars sign, then in Venus sign, there was a booming market of making money from good habits. Okay, so for me, I was making money even if I was teaching English, for example, a simple action. I was looking holistically at, let's say I would get a student, I would say, okay, how are you in math? How are you in linguistics? How are you in history? To see what faculties are um, flowing and what faculties are not so flowing. And then I would ask the big question, what is your biggest dream? No coffee. Yeah. What is basically something that you'd really want to do? Maybe a place to travel or a dream that you want to accomplish and or something that you'd want to study. And then I would say, okay, let's begin to do that, but in English, and combine that with whatever was needed for school. And this is why my students, sometimes I would sit not more than 3-4 meetings, and then the child would say, well, I feel confident. Because sometimes that was the issue. They didn't feel confident. Then they felt confident. I did not see it as a client loss. I saw it as space for more people that actually need my services. That's entrepreneurship. And this is also how the students that were staying long term were the students that were building a life trajectory. And then after several years, one student told me, "SheerLee, you don't teach me English." And I'm like, what do you mean? What happened? And he said, no, it's a teacher for life. And that was after, I think, 3, 4, 5 years. They were very important also in my life. And now I felt that, oh, that simple job of being an English tutor was actually made into something that's meaningful for me, so I could sustain it. Later, I studied aromatherapy, I studied astrology, and even the few people that were lucky enough to get my consultations when I was given them, then because I did not have too much time for whether it was writing my thesis or recovery or other things that I was doing, um, or studies and developing my skills. But basically, they would get their own trajectory. Was going through, let's say it was relationships, so this industry, that's industry, that's industry, and natal charts, and so on and so forth. Okay, we see a trajectory. What's the thing that's most important right now? Oh, we can identify if that's transiting the natal chart, and each time person would get to balance something, then they would come out happy, and Then I say, okay, authentically to myself, I don't feel like, at that time, I was like, I don't feel like giving relational readings. I became more fascinated with Uranus. Now, why am I saying that? Because these are good examples that I'm showing from my life how I made money from people growing, from people growing into their life mission, from people developing good habits and skills. And when Uranus was in Aries, we had the booming of the applications that develop good skills. So these were whether it was the tree applications that grow a tree while you're not looking at the phone and you're studying, or those applications that were meditating with the people that use them, or counting their steps was shown. Okay, and as simple as these activities are to people um, that were in a situation where they were recovering from what Chen is talking about. Chen is talking about, not just in the US but in the world. Okay, one of the things, for example, I have next to me on my bed, not next to my bed, on my bed, a mineral toothpaste and a toothbrush and a cup. And I know why I need that. Okay, anybody recovering, anybody's recovering from something, anybody that's been through something, you know what I'm talking about. You know how important and how sometimes I need to remind myself, hey, I like the taste of this toothpaste. And that would be the reason that I brushed my teeth today. Everybody that dealt with something, whether it's grief, whether it's ailment, whether it's trauma, whether it's recovery. And you know what? Even after a good athletic session, I remember when Uranus was in Aries, I used to joke about what people think athletes look like and what we actually look like, which is a broken penguin. Um, the pain in the not being able to move the muscles after a workout was an omen that we did something, and the joy. The person can barely walk. Disabled people asking what happened. Nothing. A good workout at the gym. For those who do freeletics or calisthenics, you know what I'm talking about. I try to do the little jumpings of the animal flow. Somebody that reminded me of that. It came up before COVID, before I was severely targeted, and then I could not do any workout. And I just jumped 2 jumps on my mattress and felt my heart pumping. But it reminded me of the good days of working out. And now there's a shit ton of money in that business. I remember I saw 2 Scandinavian girls. I don't remember if they were from Norway or Sweden. And one of them was having a food freedom and fitness app that's fitting for people, particularly talking about body positive. Um, and that was such a magnificent idea. Okay, now then Uranus moved to Taurus, and everybody learned what a jade egg is. I remember I once wanted to clean my crystals. So what to do with that, what to do with that, what to do with that, what to do with that. And one was a jade egg. And I was like, oh shit. um, so this is basically a time where people began to benefit of people being sexually sovereign. It made good money. When I started aromatherapy, a lot of folks were thinking that this is a misu, kind of like an Epstein thingy. Jean-Claude Van Damme worked as a misu. He was sexually harassed. Then he worked for, when he worked with Menachem Golan, he said that the actors were saving money for the for the litigation against them. And I'm like, but you were sexually harassed as a misu. Why? Today I know more about those type of environments. Um, but those people were not up to speed with Uranus in Taurus. It's kind of like, hey, of course these oils can make you reconnect with your sense of embodiment and sensuality. Even something as simple as orange essential oil, which is like the most accessible. But then, if people don't have the sex positive environments to support themselves, then they're going to act like they're in an Epstein island. I had to flee. But this is also where we saw this big money in people having a willing consent type of orgasm. In fact, way bigger than in any Epstein Island. Because whatever is made in an Epstein Island has a time frame for the bubble to pop. Okay, it's a part of that economy. And there are competing extortion cults. And so where people were fighting our industries, they're trying to recruit us to the Epstein stuff. They were basically combating against their own ability to actually have an orgasm that is not misplaced arousal, trauma, dissociation, mind control, and extortion cults. The lovely thing that my mother just brought me coffee when I talk about that. I've edited my mother's book. So, yes. I am recording. Thank you. I'm recording. Bye. Recording. Recording. Thank you. Okay. What's happening right now? The moon is applying to square Pluto. That's so. My mother is kind of like unusually. And then somebody outside is screaming, and the moon is exactly ingressed to the opposition with Pluto. So our sun is 23 degrees Sag. So sun is in Mula Nakshatra. And that's why we had this sharp energy. But what we're seeing is basically that our booming industries that make a lot of money, okay? But when I say a lot of money, it's not about, and how should I say that? Let's talk about nutrition because that's an easier way to explain that. If I need to eat 2 kilos of apples to get the same nutrient that I would get from one single apple that grows in a nourished soil that's not polluted and toxic, then that one apple growing in my tree would be the wealth of the 2 kilos of apples that were not even getting close to the nourishment of that one apple. I remember when I ate a bowl full of amaranth, I sliced the amaranth, and some olive oil, and some of my thieves vinegar. And the next day I was like, it's like I ate a steak And I'm like, what happened? It's me. Yesterday I cut, this, I think it's called chrysanthemums. Please study that with a forager because I don't want you guys poisoning yourself more than you already do. But I sliced some of these with some amaranth, my olive oil, and my thieves vinegar. That was so nourishing and revitalizing. I never get it in any store-bought salad, no matter what, however fresh. Which left me money to buy good cheese. My soil does not grow um, old cheese. Now, what happened with our industries? Very simply put, everybody wanted our products. And everybody knew that our business becoming big is all the Epstein lists leaked out. It's transmit, even because, let's say, the Epstein list. Let's talk about a billionaire that I don't have a monokshatran compatibility with. Rothschild. Okay? To heal from the unhealthy practices, they would need to speak. They would need to Anneke Lucas. Okay? How do they even begin? Well, as some of you have seen, a lot of my channel is paving that path. I was not in those codes, but from the outside I try to open the door so that those that want to recover and heal and change and transmute can go out of those practices. For me, it means that I can live well, that I can make a living. For them, also. I'm thinking to buy particular Inuit earrings. And the reason being is because this is my response to the actually quite appealing and cute trend of the guillotine earrings. I saw it in a couple of places. To say that it's not cute would be a lie. That being said, the particular Inuit earrings I wanted to buy is from Shaina Tova. And I don't know if I'll get to it this month or next month, but the reason being, then you might see me with indigenous earrings. Very good for Sedna Gemini, Mercury, Gemini, ears. Fantastic purchase. For me, my Venus and Mercury are, my Venus is conjoined to Sedna. Venus is jewelry. Is conjoined to Mercury from the outer sign. So Mercury is also ears. So that can be actually an attempt at Sedna remediation. And I may look at it and experience with that. And that can be Sedna remediation for most people because Sedna is in Taurus. And if they have Venus with Mercury, Venus in Mercury sign, that can be a good remediation for Sedna. Okay, particularly when they buy it, not particularly when they buy it from Inuit-owned business. And also, particularly, China has, later only I thought about that, dealt with struggles that are analogous to stuff that I dealt with. Okay, not one to one, but and uh, and to me, it's something that's very endearing, and I think is a way better response than the guillotine. And again, it's not instead of the guillotine. It's kind of like, I guess people wear more than one set of earrings, and the reason is that while one is applying with a symbol that is a part of Alice in Wonderland programming of MK Ultra, that is a part of ritual abuse, off with their heads is a part of ritual abuse. It's basically playing to the hand of extortion cults. The other one is tending to the solution to actually buying the product from the people that dealt and that express themselves through creativity that is of their own origin and connection to their tradition and their expression. And Shanna and her mother also have um, their music, traditional throat singing, and that is actually a part of the solution to the problem of where industrialized society um, was rising on the account of indigenous people and land and resources rather than actually supporting. And unlike natural resources, if I buy from an Inuit business jewelries or art or something of that sort, I don't make cultural appropriation. I don't take from their resources. Yeah, it's not like buying caribou. They're supposed to feed the people, the local people. And it's actually good investment. Okay, when they wanted to take down the power of the oligarchs, the first thing that they took is they confiscated the ability to trade, and it confiscated the art that was by the oligarchs. So just so you would understand how valuable is an art product, and perhaps China has to take it into account in the pricing. I think it's very affordable, but it's something that this has, I think, way more value than the prices marketed at. I'm not against. I mean, Melania Trump did a jewelry company that's affordable jewelry company, and she took that affordable section. But then the question is, do we go for that, or do we go also for a luxury product? And this has the traditional values. It has a lot more value to it as an artwork than I think is marketed in. So that's something that's um, definitely coming up. And by the way, I do like the guillotine earrings. They're very cute, um, really cute concept. They're reminding people, even if it is a part of the programming, they're reminding people that their part of the programming is also inclusive of the guillotine. The guillotine, okay, and it's also a way that is completely valid to bring a message. And then there is this, Uranian aspect that where everybody is wearing that thing. There's this desire to stand out. And that was something I was thinking about in that regard. Also, it brings the message of creation, innovation, connection. For some people, tradition or origin. For me, it's original. And as an astrology remediation for Sedna, Inuit earrings is one of the things that are supposed to work well. I have found tending to Sedna by honoring Inuit people and tending, even if it's just tending to, even if I don't actually know what action to take, the problems that Inuit people deal with, um, very, very supportive, very, very benefic. So, and I think I'm one of the only astrologers that I know that talks about Sedna remediation. Again, I could be wrong because I'm not up to speed with everything that's happening in that arena. But I think that from astrology perspective, Sedna remediation, and I've been talking about it for several years, but this is something that now, following several years, I find that to be actually working and actually remediating. So yes, it does work as remediation, at least for me. And this is, and also anything that tends to the Sedna story. Okay, abolishing trafficking, abolishing extortion cults, all these things that I've been tending to for quite a while. So to combine the two teams, of course, the booming market of making money from good habits, from growth, from sexuality that is actually thriving, actually real, actually, not programmed, mind controlled, and so on and so forth. That's a really booming market. And then the threshold or the growth crisis for the businesses is to tend to those dark things that none of us would be able to tend to without the previous healing and recovery. And that, of course, triggers um, there were actual attempts. And again, one of the examples that I have to those triggers of the environments when a person changes, which I talked about yesterday, is a person that was prescribed to travel 1 day a week because they saw that when they do that, their nervous system is more regulated, and all of their environment came against me because they understood that the change in them was me. And if people wanted him to not have the time to think, then there was this person that told him that that's imperative to keep his nervous system healthy and regulated, and that has a medical implication. If he began to rebel about the fact that they began to limit the coffee at the workplace, which is kind of like a red flag. Yeah, if you date someone and they show microaggression, then that's a red flag that they'll continue to do more things if that is not met with a backlash. And then the Ministry of Agriculture had mail. So the people around him tried to tell him to pretend that he is crazy. And when we worked with kyanite, particularly blue kyanite, then of course it also curates the energy, which can lift things. Um, I would learn about it years later. that had this effect on people. But their energy they began to get along with the people that were harassing them at work. And then the big deal is that the people around them didn't like women connecting to their own sense of embodiment, particularly below the belt. Normally, when a person studies, let's say, aromatherapy, and they make a nice essential oil, say, I don't know, New Beginning, or something that is a good scent that has a nice intention, then it goes mouth to ear. But when everybody has an Epstein Island and are making money out of people being addicted to the particular type of orgasm that make them lose everything, life, relationships, housing, then they did rituals to try to siphon my energy. And that was because I made this person attune to whether something drains their energy or not. And all the secret societies around them were dumbfounded and acted to try to make me dependent on him. That would, of course, take away the freedom that we both valued as people. We're not romantically affiliated. And the fact that he was expected to be able to have apartment or real estate or house by actively participating in ritual abuse, trafficking, and maybe even assassination. Of course, when people begin to intuit, that was Neptune in Pisces, but also Uranus, then those that relied upon people never accessing the astral are reliant upon the people that think that everything is nothing and there is no karma, because that's how you get people to do crime. Or thinking that if they will be good, they will never profit, they will never this, they will never that. Because that's how they get people to create bubbles and pop bubbles. And everybody feels like they have the super control about everything. But that's a bubble that on Valentine's Day, this Valentine's Day, is going to pop. Because control, excessive control, creates mold, creates ailment, and nobody trusts anymore what they market to treat that. And so people, when they see they can't just go to a plant teacher, get embodied with a jade egg, and they have to actually take down the mold from the structures of the global system. And it's a life or death issue. Is not a good sign for those that seek to have peace when others are fighting each other. And the thing about Aries and Andromeda, by the way, yesterday Annika Lucas talked about the particular type of training where she would have to be the sort of damsel in distress and yet be unattainable. Okay, damsel in distress, kind of like needing rescue, and then being unattainable at the same time. And then that would make people fall in love with her or something like that. I just have it by trauma. And I can attest that it's attractive to people, but not really yielding. I didn't try to be attractive to people with that. I don't know, but I have Mercury, ruler of the 7 and 14 Andromeda constellation. And indeed, housing was kind of a situation where I needed rescue, but it was also unattainable. And as she said, she was programmed to be believing that she needs a man to have a house. They tried to do that to me as well. And I always said it's needing two houses. My house, their house. I need to own my house. They need to own their house. So there is an Andromeda issue. But Aries on Andromeda, the 2 moons. Falcon, the 2 moons on Andromeda constellation. Shall we talk about it? There's something you want to tell us. No, actually, Mark Rutte has a moon on Andromeda constellation. He's in his 8th house. And one of his things was that he said the last taboo in Netherlands is for a man to live alone. Which I said, yes, he's right. Also, women need to be able to live alone. They have their own house. They own something and be happy. Conjoin that with sexual sovereignty. Very happy times. But Aries in Andromeda constellation is very interesting because those that cause the chaos are now in need of saving. Chiron is also an Andromeda constellation. And to be, here's the issue with housing. Because everybody Nazi. And people that want the right out of violence need a home. But it's also about curating that wound, so hopefully there will be better times. Now, a little bit about Mars in Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It's trining Moon right now. Ruled by that Saturn. Mars in Capricorn thinks about actions. Mars in Capricorn is exalted because it thinks about the implications of its actions and it has the durability to take action. Okay? If Mars has to accomplish something that takes time, that takes diligence, and everybody has to do their due diligence, then Mars is competent here. Okay? Mars is able to sustain through what it wants to achieve. Mars is also here is climbing the mountain. Mars in Capricorn is more concerned about climbing up the ladder than changing or designing or architecture of a system, where that would be Mars in Aquarius. Mars wants foundations that stand the test of time in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn people are able to communicate with people higher up the rank and stand their ground. People are able to see where climbing up the mountain or climbing up the ranks would include something that, again, Mars in Capricorn itself is not about changing, but this is also why I opened with how we already began to boom with businesses that are supportive of a good life, of sovereign sexuality, joy of living, okay, vacation, and so on, traveling, or even pilgrimage, not in the religious sense, but the literal sense of climbing a mountain. And here the awareness that to grow, um, that would take that those that were mixed with the businesses that ours are correcting, okay? But this is also the authentic market correction. Your business don't yield if it ain't about sexual sovereignty in the sense of being able to say no without fearing for loss of implications. Again, we go back to the Senna story. Everybody blames Senna. She thinks she's too much. She thinks she's that, because they were needing to deal with rejection. Why doesn't she find? Because she exposed something that's underlying in society. And this is why no single man's touch was good. If all these single men are busy, I'm sorry, jerking off on things that are trauma found and create dopamine type of sex addiction, rather than connection, authenticity, honoring, of course their touch is not. Oh, they make money, they bring fur, they bring this, they bring that. Yeah, but the absorption of nutrients is not so good. And this is why the Senna story affected food, both the availability of food, but also the ability to absorb the nutrients from the food. With Uranus going through Aries and Taurus, and with Neptune going through Pisces and now Aries, soon to be Aries, okay? If in the past your abusive boss was, oh, I get sick, I get mentally sick, I cannot find a job, I need to look for elsewhere, and so on and so forth. Today, hey, that person tried to traffic me, try to push me into trafficking, they try to traffic me through the workplace, or try to put me in a situation where I have no income to be trafficked out of the workplace. That person's trying to assassinate me. They try to take my ideas, they try to harvest my life energy. Okay? Different type of awareness. This is where we see content creators wearing the guillotine earrings when they speak. Why don't they want to work? Well, they're waiting for the amaranth to grow so that they can actually have food, because they can't really go to work hungry. And the food, even if even if you give them, oh, I give you a voucher to buy food at Whole Foods, fantastic. But right now I'm eating the amaranth, so I need the food to actually absorb. And I don't know if those things would actually absorb. And when people are violated, they don't absorb nutrients that well. with Uranus crossing Sedna, people are becoming aware of those minerals. When I'm burning a candle for good atmosphere, what's burning? Well, perhaps if I'll prepare the candle myself, I'll know more. And oh, when I prepare the candle myself, it heals me. So now I understand why sometimes people ask for $90 for a scented candle that's made in a particular election. Now it makes reason to buy that, because I can appreciate how that's different from burning paraffin candle. It's winter time, so that's just natural things that are going to happen to people. This is why entire United States is losing their RVs. Not their homes anymore, their RVs. So that, God forbid, they would intend to wind the name of God. They can't just grow the amaranths that they don't even need to grow, that grow the purslane, and then buy at the local market some nice fresh eggs, or for those that are not vegan, or maybe those nutrients are actually suffice for those that are vegan. I don't know. Like, I actually don't know. And I spent, I think, around almost a decade looking into nutrition from various perspectives. So much so that before COVID, I thought to study nutrition so that I will be able to give that as a service, so that I will just have the certificate because because I studied so much. Not a doggone thing. If there's a person homeless, oh, they need any food would do. Well, they would need to absorb the nutrients. They will need to support their nervous system. They would need to detox if they have any type of addiction. If a person, let's say homeless, takes a job or escapes the violence, they take a job. Oh, any job that is, I can do this, I can do that. We all been like that. I've been like that. I almost pinched my cheeks to show that I'm not a burden. What happens later? Person collapses. They are more susceptible to violence in the new workplace or residence. And then, they don't want help. Everything that's being offered to them, they say no. Because they're being offered trafficking in different type of packages. And they're more susceptible to the ingredients that they become allergic to, which is violation of sexual sovereignty and life energy, while other people are still thinking that, yeah, I mean, if my body's weird, then, it's time to maybe think about look for another job. They're still stuck at that. But the person that has been in the situation becomes observant and hypervigilant, but also grounded and observant and saying, wait a second, if I take all of these advices, I already took all of these advices. I know where they lead. And all of these people don't see that because they haven't still saw what they're actually about to see. And once they do see that, you know, then they are going to pinch their cheeks and to show that they are not a burden. Yes, the moon is squaring Pluto from Scorpio. It's very evident. Ascendant on Dere Balgiri. So yes, Mars is going to be in Capricorn. And it's going from the square to the sextile with Saturn Neptune, going into the conjunction with Pluto, and from the inconjunct to the trine with Uranus. And it is going from the trine to the square with Chiron and Aries. Okay, the meaning of Mars and Pluto will be in Aquarius, Saturn ruled. This is where Mars is getting informed about the many things that we talked about. But I said that the stellium that is now beginning to move through Capricorn and Aquarius for until February is basically the stellium of implications. Again, some people quoted me saying implications, implications, implications. Yes, this is Saturn. For example, with all the Epstein dentistry torture rooms and the minerals, the toxins in the chemicals, and the fact that if you take a wisdom teeth out, you also need to be extra caring, and the fact that the water is not necessarily really watering, and the mineral water is with fluoride. Okay? The people that come to me in my dreams. Okay? Um, the closest filter Brita that I know is at the baby's shop. Like where they sell. And I try to get in there, and the temperature is adjusted for babies, so it's warm. Okay, it's not hot, but it's warm. And I just couldn't breathe. And I'm like, in Finland, they let them rest in the snow with the baby's wagon for a reason. It's the temperature. It's the temperature of Jupiter, because Jupiter is about this warmth that is not too hot. It's not Mars. It's not the sun. But it's allowing for something to grow. That's both the baby and bacterias. But oils like mint essential oil, they definitely kill bacteria, but they might also kill infants. They just stop their breathing. That's the cineol. And the menthol as well. Particularly the menthol. which is a type of signal. So more fascinating facts about life and death. So yeah, I talked about it. The coming stellium through Capricorn and Aquarius is all of us having to deal with the implications of things up until now. And again, it's not blame and shame. And with that, we'll try to do our best. So, and we're also going to be introduced to the implications of what we, if whether we have what we need or don't regarding to each planet. Saturn still in Pisces. Mars can ask the question, do I have limiting beliefs about what actions I can take? Do my beliefs limit me or sustain me? Why? Because Saturn is in Jupiter's sign. Do I have the mindset that's gonna nourish me to sustain effort? Is the religious bureaucracy supportive of what I'm trying to build? Sun in Capricorn. Is the structure of my belief system allow me to grow as a person and express myself creatively in a way that stands the test of time or accumulates wealth? Venus. Are my values supported by the system of beliefs that I'm in? Does my system of beliefs supports the value of enjoyable Venus time Saturn? Would I have an enjoyable time climbing up the ladder? Is the structure of belief system in my corporation supportive of me enjoying climbing up the ladder? Okay? For example, I saw a video about a lady that was advertised in some sort of trafficking, and she talked about humiliation ritual as having a sex tape or whatnot as necessary to climb up the ladder. Okay, not gonna say no name. It's not about bashing anyone. Venus begs the question, wait, but isn't that something that can result A, in death, B, in my life force being taken? Isn't that something that would haunt a person? Hey, the reason I want to climb up the ladder is because I think I will have more enjoyable life. But if I will be recovering from lifelong trauma of ritual abuse on film and be haunted for it, that quite drains the pleasure.